Stalker Clear Sky is the black sheep of the franchise and is often regarded as the worst of the series. In terms of the narrative and gameplay, this is true. However, this label has resulted in people completely overlooking the game just because of some naysayers. Are they right? Let's find out.
Back to the front! You will do what I say when I say back to the front! You will die when I say you must die back to the front! You coward! You traitors! You blackbird!
Let's get one thing squared right away. This game is beautiful. If you played Shadow of Chernobyl beforehand, this has to be the first thing you notice upon booting up CS. Out of the 3 games, Clear Sky by far has the greatest visuals. Not to pull a fast one on ya and just summarize the entire story of the game, which gives you less of a reason to even play it and call it peak YouTube content, I'll just say this. You are Mercenary Scar and you need to stop a stalker from reaching the CMPP or you will die. Right out of the gate, you are bombarded with exposition which expands what we know about the zone, given that you've played SOC. Now I've said it before and I'll say it again. The walls of text aren't inherently bad, but it is not an optimal way of displaying dialogue to the player. I don't dislike them, but there's been better ways of doing this. HUD atrocity aside, the info we gain in this beginning segment from Clear Sky, and most stalkers we come across in the game do an excellent job of giving us little bits and pieces of knowledge that help us understand the zone just a bit better. One of the worst aspects of SOC was your armor being torn to shreds and your weapon jamming at critical moments, with not much you could really do about it. This has been alleviated with the Technicians mechanic. Technicians are skilled brodies who are capable of repairing your weapons and armor. Not for free, of course. Not only can they repair your stuff, but they can upgrade it as well. In order to equip artifacts now, the suit you're wearing must be capable of carrying them. This is all fine and dandy, but I must speak up when it comes to the weapons. At a glance, it seems like a joy to be able to tune up your shooters to not be complete dog water. The problem comes when you realize that the early game unupgraded weapons might as well have the accuracy of a dollar store BB gun. If you have to nerf your guns beforehand to make upgrading desirable, you've done something wrong. That aside, the additions of these technicians are fantastic, and there's even more incentive to see them as they need your help collecting upgrade information, which rewards you with not only access to the new upgrades, but money as well.
Is it me, or are everyone's hands growing out of their asses? Nah, it's not me.
Artifact hunting became much more interesting due to the implementation of artifact detectors. In SOC, artifacts were way more plentiful and could be found just laying on the ground. Clear Sky made it so that you need a detector for the artifact to even pop up. In the early game where you don't have a proper suit, I'm not gonna lie, it's just a game of quick save, quick load. But later on, where you can reasonably navigate through the anomaly fields without immediately perishing, it's quite the memorable experience. The guide mechanic. One of my least favorite parts of Stalker is the excessive amount of walking where absolutely nothing is happening. My immersion though! Die. The guide mechanic is sort of like fast travel, except it's pretty limited and you have to pay money to use it. If you know what you're doing, money is not an issue, and it's a much more enjoyable experience, especially when you don't have any endurance artifacts and are stuck in the cycle of running 10 steps, out of stamina, pause, regain stamina, and repeat. Now if you played SOC and then play this game immediately after, you will notice that you cannot aim down the pistol sights in this game. For no reason at all, GSC removed the feature. A lot of people will downplay pistols to begin with, but they're good in close quarters where the alternative is using your primary, which blocks out so much of your screen. The early game in all of the Stalker games can be a little bit of a challenge, but Clear Sky takes it to a whole new level. You start off in the swamps, which on a visual level is a quite nice contrast from the majority of locations we've seen from the previous game. In terms of actual gameplay, however, it fucking sucks. Putting aside the atrocious weapon accuracy, the swamps suck for a number of reasons. You're trying to wipe out the bandits and take over the swamps, but accompanying you for a good amount of the time is the Clear Sky faction. One of the ways in which they'll help you is pushing you out of cover so they can do their little cover animation and force you to stand out in the open. When you're not fighting near these little dusty shacks, you're fighting where there's tall grass obscuring your view, but the enemies can see you just fine. The bleeding in this game is atrocious. In the early game, your armor is non-existent, so every shot you take results in bleeding. And late game, there are so many enemies you will bleed no matter what. Unlike Call of Pripyat, which saw a large new map. Clear Sky has more old locations we've already seen before. There are the swamps, a better version of the Red Forest, and Limansk. But other than that, it's mostly locations we've already seen in SOC. This isn't a bad thing though, and is actually one of Clear Sky's biggest strengths. Clear Sky is a prequel to SOC, so we see firsthand how the zone is capable of changing such a drastic amount in such a short time. One of the better parts of S.T.A.L.K.E.R as a whole is the factions, and this game definitely does that justice. Upon entering the cordon, we see that the underpass is not under military control, but in fact under the control of a loner squad. This abandoned and desolate location from SOC once held a promising upstart of free stalkers, which had its own trader, technician, and leader. The Dark Valley factory that was held by Borov and the bandits is currently held by Freedom. The Agroprom Research Institute was a duty base equipped with its own shooting range and even a zoo filled with stuffed mutants in order to train rookie dutiers in identifying the dangers of the zone. Some things remain the same, like the conflict between the bandits and the loners in the garbage, and Professor Sakharov remaining in his bunker in Yantar. While we're on the topic of factions, let's talk about faction wars very briefly. You are given the option to join these factions in the game, and in doing so, you make an enemy out of another. On paper, this is an interesting idea, but you're not really given much of an incentive to join a faction. Your best play is to stay neutral so you can utilize everyone's services at your convenience. For example, if you help the loners take over the hangar and the garbage from the bandits, you are rewarded with the Seva suit. Which is funny because Limpid, the bandit technician, is the only one who can fully upgrade it, and you no longer have any access to him. The only reason I ever joined a faction was because of the bandits holding me up at the entrance to the garbage. So I did what any reasonable person would do and wiped them completely out with the loners. The result of this, however, was that I never experienced the bandit content until my third playthrough that I did for this video. And every time I went to the garbage, which was quite frequent, I had to mow down more of these assholes. The system is cool conceptually, but there's not really any reason to align with factions beyond, yeah, these guys have a cool uniform. If we got faction-specific endings relative to the story, I'd see this making more sense, but we're stuck with Clear Sky till the end. S.T.A.L.K.E.R Clear Sky was supposed to have a different name initially, Anarchy Cell. A really cool name, mind you. But the name of this game should really be called Untapped Potential. Earlier, I was talking about how this game drip feeds you information about the zone and its history through the use of NPC dialogue. This is simultaneously a good and bad thing. Throughout the game, you will chat up several stalkers of different backgrounds, all with very interesting things to say. A lot of it is unsubstantiated myths and legends. A lot of the things you'll hear, though, are unique experiences that make you wish they included that in the game for you to experience instead. If you talk to Yar, he'll talk about artifacts that are capable of generating anomalies, which are useful to knock someone off your trail. You will never see this happen. It is not a feature. The compass artifact is another thing. It is a quest item and a unique artifact in this game that is said to be able to help the user navigate through anomaly fields. The cop-out here is that in the item's description, it is said, few people know how to handle it properly. What we do in game is take the compass, give it to Forrester, who will then help some mercenaries trapped in a spatial anomaly navigate out of it, rather than put us, the player, in the same situation in which we need to use the compass to find the way out, which would be a much more interesting scenario gameplay-wise. In the Red Forest, you can find the corpse of Father Valerian, the leader of the loners back in the cordon. If you go back to the cordon, however, you will see he is very much alive. This inconsistency is just a bug, but it provided the interesting concept of clones and doppelgangers operating in the zone. This game, and S.T.A.L.K.E.R in general, would benefit greatly from bringing in more sci-fi and supernatural elements. There are so many gameplay opportunities Clear Sky could have explored, but didn't. Now it seems that I've been whining and crying and complaining about Clear Sky this entire time, but despite that, I would recommend you give it a shot every time. Clear Sky is a very frustrating game. People often talk about how hard S.T.A.L.K.E.R can be, but that is often not due to purposeful game design, but by sheer madness. Let's take this experience I had in Clear Sky, for example. You are given one task, which is to get past the yard guarded by around 20 monolith soldiers. The only nearby cover is a tree which has a ton of foliage, making you unable to see shit through it. Walking through the open gates is a surefire way of getting killed immediately. The grenade spam is atrocious. Speaking of which, grenades are not very useful for you. Here's this guy surviving a grenade that's right next to him, but it is a one-hit kill for you every time and with 100% accuracy from the enemy. It is literally an uphill battle. This is awful game design. Clear Sky is not a great game by any stretch of the imagination. Shadow of Chernobyl has a superior story by far, and Call of Pripyat has the most fleshed out gameplay of the three. There are many things to nitpick about this game. This game does a good job of pissing you off, but despite that, I keep coming back.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
This game isn't the greatest stalker experience there is to offer, but it is surprisingly much more memorable to me than the other two games. I have the strangest relationship with this game. I can't think of any other game that had a shitty rushed ending, was ridden with bugs, and had me sweating for my life against NPCs, and even with all that, still left me feeling satisfied and content after completing. Let me put it like this. RE4 Remake is a better game on a technical level than all three Stalker games. But Stalker has vastly more interesting lore, gameplay mechanics, and setting. So much so that while I can't ignore all of Clear Sky's shortcomings, I can still find enjoyment in this game, despite the poor difficulty balances, bugs, and all the other issues that come with rush development. Meanwhile, RE4 Remake is a game that exists. Play Clear Sky, play the other two games, and goodbye.